Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Upstream podcast. I am your host, Rafael Correa, and I am joined today by the enigmatic Senior Vice President of Commercial Strategy at KOA, Kim Wooten. Kim, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
When I started doing this podcast, you were at the top of my list of people that I wanted to have on here. So I really appreciate you making it a priority for you as well.
No pressure.
No, absolutely. So Kim is the SVP of Commercial Strategy today at KOA. She's also a Blue Water alum, which means that she has probably one of the most well-versed experiences in this industry, but you didn't start out in the outdoor hospitality industry. Tell us a little bit about kind of the origin story of Kim.
Yeah, my career took a really interesting journey, which is kind of all culminated into the role that I have today, but I started in retail.
Retail.
Love
it.
Like old school. I started with PacSun for all of my OG
I was
millennials.
A very loyal PacSun shopper back in the day.
And, started in college, which turned into full-time role, which turned into a 12-year career.
Yeah.
And
it was grunge phase, by the way. I had a very deep grunge phase, and it was fueled by PacSun. So I know that's wild. So that was a big change for a long time.
It was, and I started before many PacSuns even carried women's clothing. So I was in that infancy stage before it catapulted into what it became, as a massive billion-dollar teen lifestyle retailer in the early 2000s, late 2000s.
The good old days, as I refer to them as.
But it was really there that I learned how to be a leader.
Yeah.
The people culture at PacSun was incredible and infectious. And that's really unusual in the retail industry with such high turnover. But I learned how to truly lead. I learned my insane drive for results. That became very apparent.
Your trademark.
Quickly. And I also learned about my passion for leading others. I love to build effective teams. I love to develop others. So that culmination of those three things really built the foundation for a lot of the leadership part of my career. And so, like I said, I was there for 12 years.
Wow.
And then I made the leap into hospitality and indoor hospitality, as I like to refer to it, more traditional hospitality, which was an interesting transition. I started in sales, which was very natural coming from retail.
Sure.
Really people-focused part of the business. And that grew to marketing, and that grew to revenue management. And I worked with Marshall Hotels out of Maryland.
And prolific hotel operator here in this, actually nationally, but big time in this market.
Absolutely. And was just introduced to a whole new industry that I really fell in love with. Had the opportunity to work with independent properties and branded properties, and that just sparked something new in me, lots of new things to learn.
A new mountain to climb.
Right? Yeah. And it was there that I was introduced to Blue Water.
Yeah.
And, joined Blue Water after a couple years with Marshall. And it was there that I was introduced to outdoor hospitality.
Yeah. And KOA too, right?
And KOA, yeah. I was not, outdoorsy like I am now. I had never camped before. And so that was fascinating to me. And I do remember very vividly, it was kind of funny just showing up on one of my first days on a campground in my traditional hotel attire and
gear.
Heels and a pencil skirt, trying to truck it through a campground, and I realized I was not in Kansas anymore. But it was fascinating to see how so many disciplines from the traditional hospitality industry carry over into outdoor hospitality, and then learn all the uniquenesses of camping and outdoor hospitality. And then after a few years with Blue Water, I landed at KOA. And so here we are today. I've been with KOA for a little over 5 years now.
Wow. Time flies.
Yeah, it does.
Well, good. Fantastic. So SVP of Commercial Strategy, super broad definition.
Yeah.
Help us kind of frame that in. What is under your domain of control there at KOA? And I know it's a lot, but try and kind of give me the synopsis version of where everybody could kind of understand what that translates to in kind of day-to-day activities at KOA.
Absolutely. I have the opportunity to lead and the privilege to lead just this amazing team of professionals, but I oversee really all the departments that are focused on driving revenue and growth within our organization. Revenue management being the first one of those.
Sure. Tip of the spear.
So, all of the components from just looking at, campground revenue for both our owned asset portfolio as well as our franchise portfolio, but really looking at KOA's revenue as a whole for our whole organization. Local marketing falls under my purview.
Okay.
And really, how do we teach owners how to market their business really well? How do we support the campgrounds that we own and operate, and how do we market for them? Sales falls under my purview, so group sales, and this
which
is
a newer initiative.
Discipline.
Yeah, okay.
We launched group sales at KOA last year, and are really building this department, which is a little bit of what I'm known for. Revenue management didn't exist really when I started at KOA, and so we're building a group sales division at KOA, and then retail falls within my purview as well. So our department supports both the franchise side of the organization as well as our owned assets.
Okay.
And we're a force.
That's helpful context, because it's almost like you are in many ways kind of an entrepreneurial arm of building these new divisions within an established, well cemented in the industry franchise, right? And it's kind of, it's a great symbol of how even storied and established companies have to continue to innovate, right?
Absolutely. And I by nature am a leader that likes to challenge the process. So I like to think of myself as a little bit of a positive disruptor within the KOA organization, and really challenging what we've been doing and how we can do it better, and how we can evolve and stay, and remain, the world leader in outdoor hospitality. And this role has really given me the opportunity to do so. So, introducing things like franchise business coaching and business intelligence, managed services. And, I spend a lot of time working with all of our departments. We're really, really integrated within the organization, which is critical for everyone's success. But I spend a lot of time with technology as well, way more than I ever anticipated.
Yeah.
But really have the opportunity to influence our entire tech stack,
the roadmap, and kind of where you're going.
Yeah, and kind of all in the spirit of the guest journey and generating revenue growth.
Well, speaking on behalf of all of us franchisees that are out there, we genuinely appreciate what you're doing to kind of continue to push the envelope and bring new tools to bear. Also, one of the things that I think you've done a great job, and KOA in general, right? Not just you, but you guys have such a large pool of data, right? And you guys go out of your way to, generate national reports and do surveys and statistics to really understand the health and viability and kind of growing, contracting. What is our industry really doing? And it really informs a lot of us who are investors out there as to kind of which direction we need to be going, who we need to be focusing on. Curious, what's the latest and greatest data that Kim is bouncing around in Kim's head today these days? Oh my gosh,
it's endless. And I think that's the most exciting thing. Commercial strategy in and of itself is data driven. That's what we thrive on and live on. But we at KOA do an amazing job of gathering data from all sources. And so, the hot topics that we're talking about now is really understanding demand and the changes that are happening in our industry, the changes we're seeing with our guests, who our guest is, who is our upcoming guest.
Yep.
And booking behavior, which is really a hot topic with everything, all the swirl, all the noise happening, externally in the economy and fuel prices and all that fun stuff. So, what we've been talking about a lot lately is demand and really understanding, do we have a demand issue or do we have another issue? And I will tell you, we do not have a demand issue.
Okay. Expand on that. It's interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have an amazingly loyal group of, people who love to camp and love to be outdoors. And that has been the case for
it's a lifestyle,
over 60 years.
right?
It is truly
it's a passion,
a
it's a hobby.
lifestyle.
It's not just a means of travel.
And that has not changed at all whatsoever. And, the cool thing with COVID is it spurred this, a whole new group of potential customers who are interested in being outdoors, and that hasn't diminished. Everything that we are seeing from a data standpoint with sessions and traffic, sessions are up. Traffic is up across the board. People's sentiment and intent to camp has not changed. What has changed, though, is our ability to convert, our ability to truly, understand what is needed for them to convert and to really meet them where they are, to very quickly pivot our strategies and our content and our communication to meet them where they are, and our ability to get them to come back frequently.
Yeah.
We have a conversion and a frequency problem.
Okay.
A lot of that has to do with rate. We're having a lot of conversations about rate. Rates have continued to grow.
Yeah. Despite the hesitation of the consumer.
Exactly. And in many cases, we're seeing campgrounds that have really hit their ceiling.
Yeah.
And, we know that because, we're seeing it in all of our traffic sessions. Where are guests leaving? Where are they dropping out of the booking flow? It's when they see the price.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of people who are really interested in camping, but are just not quite ready to pull the trigger. There's really interesting things going on in the economy, and we've been talking about the K economy.
Yeah.
And
not K for Kim either.
Not K for Kim, no, or KOA.
Or KOA for that matter, yeah.
There's, the top of the K, which are kind of the haves.
A K-shaped recovery
right.
is what we're talking about, yeah.
And, these individuals are a little more affluent. They have a little more wealth. They have a little bit more disposable income, and they have time. Yeah. And we're doing a really great job of capturing that customer in our campgrounds, and we have a lot of product that caters to that. KOA patio sites, premium sites, accommodations, glamping accommodations, and they're out there and they're camping frequently and they're visiting new places, but that traditionally is not the majority of our camper base. Yeah,
it's a very blue collar.
The majority of our camper base is very, economy, mid-scale, blue collar, and in many, many cases, we have priced ourselves out from being the very traditional, affordable, way to vacation.
No, that's interesting. So, let's drill down and kind of zoom in on that a little bit. So, today, when you're meeting with your clients, right, whether they're internal to KOA corporate owned or the folks that you're supporting through your teams, and we'll get a little bit more into some of those services that you guys are offering now. What's the message? What are you guys telling operators to do with respect to pricing, positioning, et cetera?
Yeah, so it really starts with understanding who your camper is, and I think that's a really big gap for a lot of operators. There's a lot of operators that think they know who their camper is, and then there's the data who really tells them, that really tells them who their camper is. So it really starts with understanding the guest, where they're coming from. Are they families? Are they young adults? Are they roaming retirees? Are they, what is the scenario? And then how do you build your strategy around each of those segments? There isn't enough strategy happening, I think, across the board.
Kind of like spray and pray, set some rates, throw some marketing out there.
There's been, we've had this good/bad habit, from just years of it working, of just incrementally increasing rates year over year, and blanketing length of stay strategy, and it worked fine for many years, but it's not working now, and we have to be much more intentional. And so it's really about understanding, okay, who is the camper that is going to stay in this site? Yeah. How do I describe the site to them so it speaks to that camper? How is it priced so that I can ensure they can afford it? But not only afford it, it's about how can we create a great experience for them? Because you know, I
Best
don't want
marketing
them
there
to
is.
just
Best marketing.
stay
Yeah.
with me. I want them to enjoy the entire experience. And I think every operator does. We all have camp stores and we have recreation that we want them to participate in, and we want them to explore the area and spend money in local markets. And when they can't do that, it's really, really limiting to their overall experience. And we you know, own that.
Yeah.
So it's really about, you know, how do I price this site based on the value I'm providing and the person that is looking to stay here? And it may be completely different from how you've priced in the past.
Just because it worked in the
okay.
past, don't assume it was the right formula, especially now as the variables have changed dramatically.
Absolutely. And knowing when to hold rate for those sites that really are booking and in demand and that create that value for that customer.
Yeah.
And knowing when to, you know, lower rate. It's okay to lower rate, y'all.
Yeah.
It is okay. It is part of your strategy. So finding that balance is really critical.
You used that word strategy a couple times, and I think it's the absolute right word, right? Because I think it's a holistic approach. It's pricing, it's marketing, it's guest experience on property, and all of those things have to be kind of coalescing, right? To actually constitute a strategy, right? That's kind of what you're talking about. One of the things that I was really kind of impressed by that KOA launched last year, because you pushed for it, was this kind of enhanced service offerings above and beyond what the franchise already brings to you, which obviously the franchise has a giant following of loyal customers. It creates a level of standards that, you know, guests come to trust and expect, which is why they might pick a KOA versus another opportunity that they have. But you know, the world of marketing and digital marketing, especially the world of rate management, you know, all of these things have gotten super complicated, right? And for the average campground owner who's got to take care of plumbing, electric, guest service issues, employees, you know, ordering, blah, 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 like how much time are they really dedicating to those services? And like, you know, we're lucky as Blue Water, we have some scale and we have people that's what they live and breathe is those things. But you guys, I think, identified a really unique and accurate opportunity and to deliver enhanced services around marketing and revenue management. And this was the first year. And so I'm super curious to hear, you know, how is it going? Well, first, let's tell me about the services and then how's it going?
Yeah, well, it was really interesting. When I first started at KOA, I spent a lot of time in the field, boots on the ground, talking with owners and operators about where their biggest challenges were. And it was very much, you know, in, you know, not having enough time to work on their business. They're spending all of their time working in their business. And as things have evolved, that doesn't work anymore. You know, you cannot continue to expect the same level of growth in the environment we work in today. So our goal was to fill that gap. And truly, KOA is a brand, you know, and I've worked with lots of other franchisors, you know, and the offering that KOA has is pretty impressive. The amount of support, people support, tools support, training support is really genuinely impressive.
You get your money's worth, for sure.
Absolutely. But this was an area where we found an opportunity to do more. And so, last year we launched local marketing and revenue management, managed services.
Managed services, okay.
And, you know, we listened. We spent a lot of time listening. And so we built three tiers options, bronze, silver, and gold, if you will. For both marketing and for revenue, understanding that there are no two campgrounds alike. Every business is a little bit different. So we needed to have some diversity in our offering to ensure that we were able to support everyone in the system. But through this, we kind of take that workload off the owner. So we partner with owners to develop their strategy, understand their goals, both financially as well as their business goals, because that's really important to understand where they're trying to go so we can figure out how to get them there. And then we craft strategy for them, both in local marketing and in revenue, that meets their business needs and that's really customized to their market, their campground. And so far it's going really well. We're really excited. We've had really positive responses, great feedback. You know, we're 4.8 out of 5 in our satisfaction surveys out of the gate, which is great. I'm really happy for that because anything in its infancy, there's lots of learning curves, and we've learned so much from our owners. And we have a variety of owners engaged in the program. So we have some of our highest volume locations, and they are utilizing the services to supplement while they focus on what they do best. We have locations that are new to the system that want to just start out strong and really do things right out of the gate. Yep. And this is truly ideal for our new owners, especially those just getting into the industry or just starting to work with KOA. There's so much to learn. This helps that curve.
Yeah.
And, we're really, really happy that we've, had the opportunity to launch it, and it's just growing and evolving, and more to come for sure.
A lot of demand for new people that want to come into the system with these services.
Yes. I've been spending a lot of time talking with, campground operators that are not KOAs, and this is something completely new to them. And, it's like, yes, we can take all of that off your plate. Operators are great at delivering a guest experience and managing their asset. And so, nobody really gets into camping because they're a great marketer.
Yeah.
That's not typically
it's helpful,
the scenario.
But it's not,
Right. And so this allows owners to really focus on what they do best, and we are their partners in that. It's truly a partnership.
Yep.
And
because they're not turning over the wheels, and you're not just willy-nilly firing off marketing rates. It's a collaboration.
No, and we meet regularly, and we send notes and reporting, and the whole 9 yards. It really is as if we're an extension of the team.
Yeah.
But a lot of people coming into the system, this is really fascinating, and it's not something that a lot of other franchisors in our industry, I don't think anybody is really offering this as a franchisor. And so it's a great option for
supplement.
somebody.
Yeah, it's a huge supplement. What's been your favorite kind of, if you had to pick a story from this year that kind of captures the magic of what the potential of this is? Like, who's the golden child that's seen the most impact from these services?
Yeah. I don't think they'd mind if I share, but I love the story of like Hot Springs KOA.
Okay.
It was purchased.
We don't have to give numbers, but just general ideas.
Yeah. It was purchased a couple years ago and really, really struggled. Revenue was going in the wrong direction and just lots of change. And they were one of the first to onboard. They joined Managed Services in October of last year as a pilot. And now they're consistently up. They're up in short-term business, which is really unique because a lot of the industry is struggling in short-term. They are up in long-term business, and the campground is going to be double-digit up in the green this year. And we're really proud of that.
No, that's awesome. And I think it just goes to show, and I think this is the thing I can't stress enough to campground operators, like the time you invest or, money you invest in outsourcing to get better insight with people that are all they're doing is staring at your rates or watching your marketing performance. And like I said, coalescing those into a strategy with you as the owner, like that pays for itself in spades, right? And it's really does. So, I mean, like you said, totally bucking the trend, but because they were leaving things on the table by not having a comprehensive strategy. So, no, that's exciting. Bright things ahead out there in Hot Springs.
Yeah, lots of fun stories to share coming up. We have some good case studies.
Good. I look forward. I mean, the KOA convention is Ohio. Of course, I'm a big participant and enjoy and love that show. But I've been going to conventions since we've had KOA franchises, and I mean, it is a production, and you guys do a tremendous job with that. And so if you've never been to convention as a KOA franchisee, I strongly recommend you go because Kim and Toby and the rest of the team put on quite a show.
It's a good
show.
show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Kim, I want to turn the conversation a little bit to my favorite topic these days, which is AI, right? And I would love to hear about kind of how you personally and also how KOA is leveraging the tools. What are your favorite tools? Kind of where are you pointing it and spending the time and energy to kind of make it create value for you and your franchisees?
Yeah, we really started a really dedicated focus on AI well over a year ago, if not even further than that, because we knew it was coming. And we needed to be prepared. So we really started with our AI strategy. We needed to understand all the tentacles, how AI, was going to fit into our business model, how it was going to affect our owners. And this year we launched a dedicated team. We have an AI team at KOA led by Blake Sutton. So we have an entire department that is dedicated to AI and really keeping us at the forefront. So I think that's critical to success for our organization. But what we've really boiled it down to is we don't think of AI as much as technology, but kind of an operational advantage. And how does this become integrated into the work we do every day? Because it can improve and impact every single department, including our campground operators. And so our approach is, first, how do we lean into AI when it relates to the guest journey? We want to make it seamless for guests to find what they're looking for and book.
Yeah.
Period.
No friction.
No friction.
Yeah.
No friction. And, AI can do that really, really well. So we are, for those of you who don't know, we are rebuilding our KOA.com page.
When's that launching?
Oh, I'm not going to give dates.
Okay, we're not there yet. Yeah,
but,
it's a great way to miss a date is you give a date.
Later this year is our goal.
Exciting.
And it really started with AI as the foundation. How do we integrate trip planning and personalization and really just make it very easy for guests to get outdoors,
find where they want to be, and book.
Absolutely, and we've spent a lot of time figuring out who to partner with too. There are so many people delving into AI, so many companies.
Everybody's a new expert every day.
And so we've spent a lot of time really evaluating who we want to be partnered with, how that relationship works, because I think it's very easy to go down the wrong path with AI very quickly when you don't fully understand. So we've been, I'd say, a little cautious but very intentional with how we're evolving AI within our organization. We're really focused, secondly, outside of the guest journey, on how do we use AI to improve the operator experience and really positioning AI as an operational advantage. And I think so many, I see it every day and I cringe just a little bit sometimes. I think we have a lot of campground operators and owners that are interested in AI and they're using it for, designing a graphic for social media or a flyer. Right. And that's cool. And I'm thrilled to see the engagement with it. But to me, that is not even skimming the surface of the value that AI can bring to a business. And it's really about how do we shift our mindset to think of AI as a guest enhancement tool? How do I, answer my phones better? How do I ensure somebody is dealing, working with guests 24/7? How does it impact their booking journey? Just all of those pieces and using it as an extension of their team and creating operational efficiencies. And I think to a certain degree, camping is so nostalgic. And it's very authentic, which is different from a lot of other industries and even indoor hospitality to a certain degree. And so I think you can very quickly go down the wrong path with AI. And when you really start using it to craft, creative, it's no longer as authentic and genuine. And
the old AI slop, potentially. You got to be careful of that.
The being in the outdoors is so incredibly unique. And each campground has such a personality that I hate to see that diminished. Utilizing technology.
Your property's beautiful. Don't make AI generated garbage pictures of it when you can just go get a real good one.
Right.
So don't skimp on the photography and videography.
Absolutely
all those things
absolutely
are super
not.
important.
So important. Video especially. But
So I'm going to put you in the hot seat a little bit, Kim.
Go for
here.
it.
So. And I wouldn't be doing my job as a franchisee for my fellow franchisees if I didn't ask about K2, right? And our franchise property managers. love being a KOA franchisee. We between manage and own, I think we're like 7 or 8 that we're at now, maybe more. Yeah. And so we're believers, right? But because we live in a world where we get to play with CampSpot and NewBook and StayList and other systems, is that kind of we know what else is out there and what other opportunities are there. And it's an area that I know that the organization's received a lot of heat over and pressure, and but you're working hard on it. So, we're all giving you guys the benefit of the doubt that we're going to get to the promised land. But can you tell us a little bit about kind of the K2 journey and features that are coming out or have come out? You know, anything you want to kind of maybe preview? I don't know.
Yeah, right. No, K2 has been a journey, truly. And, I love to say that I have kind of a love-hate relationship with it.
Sure.
And this is
we all do.
I know, right? I mean, let's just be real. Our industry has changed so much in the PMS space. Property management systems have evolved so much since really just COVID.
Yeah, I mean, dramatically. And even more so now.
Right. I mean, and it constantly evolving every single day, which is so exciting. Mm-hmm. But we do have a lot of work to do with K2. What I'm really excited about, though, is that we are doing that work, and we have an incredible roadmap and great leadership under our CIO, Brian Elsmore. Mm-hmm. He has a really great vision for K2 and really understands where we need to go in the future, which is just refreshing.
And I'm sure you're in his ear helping him understand.
I know. We joke about it all the time.
Yeah.
We have a good banter, and then, he's like, okay, Kim's just going to win, and I'm going to do
let's just do what Kim wants, and we'll all be happier for that.
Right. But, so we're focused on a couple of kind of key areas. Number one, making it easier for our operators. Everything from the booking flow to how to enter groups in the system. Mm-hmm. We made it very complicated. Mm-hmm. And that's not fair to those people that are on the ground and their first set of responsibilities to deliver great guest service. We made that really difficult. So we're doing a lot of work in how do we simplify the process? How do we put boundaries around things that can easily create errors so we have better data integrity and standardization as well for better data. So we're doing a lot of work in that space with K2. The next thing is within kind of our revenue tech stack, and this is where I get really excited, of course, selfishly. But we are completely rebuilding our revenue tech stack from our entire rate modernization project, which touches everything from how you set rates, how you manage rates, how you price, and that's for short-term business, long-term business, group business, discounting, packages, the whole 9 yards, everything you could want, we have talked about and is in a roadmap. And it's well underway. I've been working with the team. Our subject matter expert is working with the team, and we are making very quick progress. We should be rolling out a new best available rate system for all of our short-term and long-term business later this year, which is exciting. And it's just really the foundation that's going to lead us to all the fun things that we want with dynamic pricing and an RMS integration and more effective channel management. And so those are really fun projects. Channel management is a really big deal right now.
Huge.
We are working on an integration with a great channel manager partner to be able to provide distribution across multiple channels for those operators that want to leverage that. And we're also negotiating with some really great partners in the industry, some specific to the outdoor hospitality industry, such as Hip Camp and a few others, and then some more traditional OTAs.
Great.
So, and we launched our integration with Airbnb earlier this year for accommodations inventory, and that is going incredibly well. Adoption has exceeded our expectations.
Oh, wow.
We've already exceeded our yearly goal in adoption. Revenue is almost double what we anticipated in the first year, and it's doing exactly what we needed it to do to help drive our accommodations business. So that's all going great. And then enhanced features, housekeeping, maintenance, text messaging. We really built an entire communication platform within K2 that's really going to set us up for success in the future. And it was built pretty brilliantly. That is going to allow us to be super nimble from a guest communication standpoint, and have a lot of customization and flexibility in the future. So lots to come.
I love it.
Lots to come.
I love it. We all wait with bated breath for the next release.
I know. There's so many exciting things that are like just on the cusp of rolling out. And then even outside of K2, our business intelligence team has been working really hard, and I think your team is utilizing some of the tools that we've created, but rolling out a series of BI dashboards for campgrounds that's coming in just a few weeks, maybe a month or two, that really give owners easy access to all of their data in a single location. It's easy to navigate so they can make better business decisions.
Yeah, and when you think about it, and you guys have done an amazing job as a franchise company, but as much as anything, you're a data company, right? At the end of the day. And so when you are able to pair that data with AI and technology and turn that into information at a new clip, at a new pace, and provide us as franchisees kind of access to those tools, it's a game changer, right? So, and that kind of takes me kind of to the next question is what's your vision of this industry in 10 years from now? Let's just say the AI adoption has happened, what is RV resort and campground business look like in 10 years in Kim's eyes?
Oh my. Oh, that is such a tough question. That was one that I was going to lead for somebody else. It's interesting because I think we could very easily go down the same path as the indoor hospitality to a certain degree. There's a lot of carryover from that. There's a lot of success in what the indoor hospitality does. But we're not that. And I think we can be better than that. Really. Yeah. Truly. Yeah. And I spend a lot of time following some of the great brands and independent brands and just internationally brands that do an amazing job in what they do. But then I also look for the gaps in what they do. Yeah. And I truly believe that camping is just so unique, and not just camping, glamping, outdoor hospitality as a whole is so unique, and so we have to evolve in a different way. I think there's opportunities to pick up business in the business space, the leisure space. We're starting to host a ton of corporate events, and people are discovering outdoors in a completely unexpected way that we need to lean into. I think a lot of what we do will be driven by technology and just how do we wow our guests through something that they did not expect because we have the ability to do so. Yep. We're not confined to four walls. Yeah. And that's unique. I think we also need to find ways to be really efficient with expense. That's been one of our challenges is expense continues to go up, and insurance and all the other factors that are really a little bit more unique to our industry. And so I think we need to make some progress there. Yeah. But then I think there's also space for, I think the investment positioning in outdoor hospitality is going to change. I think people are going to learn how wonderful it is and, expand their portfolios.
More capital is coming into the space.
New capital, absolutely.
I always like to call those people RV curious. They're kind of sitting on the sidelines figuring out if they want to come in or not.
I talk with many of them, and there is a little bit of a hesitation because it is very different. But
it's an operational intent asset class, and it's I saw a really good LinkedIn post that somebody that was pretty astute that said, we like it because we see so many parallels to self-storage, and I was like, uh-oh. And then he immediately acknowledges that, but there's an operational intensity that, is not the same at all, and it's why we are making sure we understand it before we get into it. I was like, hallelujah. Preach, brother, because now there's so many people that came into the space that didn't quite understand that component.
Absolutely. I work with them on a daily basis. And that's okay. That's okay. I love that they came into the industry. But I think that's one of the things, one of my messages for owners, at any point in their journey is I don't think they use support enough. There are companies like yours, and brands.
We
like
exhaust
KOA.
Everything we get, and then we're like, and more, and
right,
this.
right, and I don't know that owners
leverage the full gamut of what's there. Yeah.
Like understanding what they're really great at.
Yeah.
And supplementing the rest and being confident in understanding that that is how their business is going to grow, and it has nothing to do with them or their skills. It's just smart business, and I don't think that's leveraged enough.
And I think it's already happening, right? And you kind of mentioned it earlier when you were talking about the new KOA.com that's coming out, but like there's going to be a level of customization that, you know, in the future version, in my Raf's future vision of camping, that it was like, is going to be that same experience that you probably got only at the highest luxury hotels where they know who you are and they know about you. Like that is going to be able to be delivered at every level, especially in our world. The other thing that I think about too is that, you know, and you mentioned you used the word authenticity earlier, and you're absolutely right. Like the outdoors is an authentic experience, and we have to respect that in how we market it. But I think the other thing that's going to change in this kind of future state of camping is consistency, right? And consistency is going to become a bigger theme and word. And you guys as a brand have done so much to bring consistency. And I know there was a lot of franchisees that went kicking and screaming because I talked to many of them, you know, at convention and others. But I think that the brand has been better served and has a better positioning within the customer's mindset because they know what a journey brings and what a holiday brings and what a resort caliber property brings. And I think it was Seth Godin, you know, recently listened to a podcast about his position about AI and how it affects marketing. And one of the things that he really hones in on is that to the extent that you can leverage it to create better consistency, like that's what guests ultimately are going to come back for is, you know, they know they're going to have a good experience. And so finding ways to preserve authenticity, drive consistency, and reduce that friction, create customization experiences like that. There's this like brave new world I envision in my mind. And of course, I'm like you, I want to be there yesterday.
Right.
But, you know, it's all things come with good time. So, anything else you want to share KOA-wise? Anything exciting going on over there? Because I want to kind of shift gears a little bit more about what makes Kim tick, which I'm sure a lot of people are curious about.
I think the fun thing about KOA is we have a lot going on right now. Mm-hmm. A lot. There's a lot of projects that we've been, you know, leading up to, and they're all happening this year.
Good.
Lots of tech work going on. Lots of work in AI, and lots of people work too, like really doubling down on the relationships we create with our owners and our partners. So it's a really great time to be at KOA and in the outdoor hospitality industry.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. So let's take a step back because, you know, you're a unique creature, Kim. Someone who I've always admired her drive, your passion. Where does it come from? Like, what makes you take? Like, when you get up in the morning and you're like, you know, you literally are a bullet coming out of a gun every single day. Like, where does that originate from? What's that drive come from?
You know, oh gosh, that is a really good question. Well, I think it starts with being, you know, like I grew up as the oldest child and the only girl in a family of 4.
Okay.
So naturally, I became somewhat competitive.
Okay.
And I had to hold my own you know, in my household. But I've always had this really, you know, like when I chose what college to go to, I didn't want to go where all my friends were going. I didn't want to go in state. I wanted to go out of state. I wanted to experience something new, and I wanted to like branch out on my own. I've you know, I have a little bit of my kind of grandmother in me in that, and just very independent.
Got it.
You know, to a fault sometimes. But it really, I thrive on impacting change. I really love that. And really helping others, whether it's somebody on my team, whether it's a colleague, just make something better. Mm-hmm. And I approach everything with a very solve for yes mentality. Like
So say that one more time.
A very solve for yes.
Solve
so that
for
is
yes.
like anybody who works for me, and most of the people, okay, we know, like that is that's my signature. Okay. Is solving for yes.
Is that the book title?
I soon to be.
Yeah.
Coming to an Amazon.
Right. I'll trademark that.
But I really I don't like the word no. I really genuinely believe that there's a solution for everything. It may not be the solution you want. It may not be the time you want it. There, may need to be a workaround and something we can work towards. But I'm very solution oriented. I'm a problem solver by nature. And I've always been that way.
Yeah.
And
just wired.
Yes.
Hardwired.
I've learned to subdue it sometimes. I can control it a little bit.
Got to realize that not everybody's moving at your speed.
I know, I'm a very high D in case nobody could tell. And I work with an incredibly diverse team. So, after years of leadership, you learn how
you got to bring people with you.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You can't get there by yourself, right?
But yeah, I'm definitely a driver. Toby very affectionately refers to me as that. I'm the driver of our business.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about something that's inspiring you recently that you've read, listened to, heard. What's something that's kind of like, oh man, that was a great insight, and kind of like you're folding it into your daily practice? Yeah,
well, it's kind of interesting because there's 3 books that I absolutely love, and I've read them and reread them at different points. So Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
Brene Brown.
Like staple.
Yeah. Gotta love vulnerability. And I think that ties in a lot to what I do. I am naturally a risk taker. I value being a risk taker. And I'm okay with failure. It's like, okay, I'd rather try and know than not try and having missed something. And so I got really comfortable really early on with being vulnerable and taking risks. And so I love that. Unreasonable Hospitality. Amazing. Oh my gosh. I just reread it a couple months ago, or re-listened to it, I should say. Lots of airplane time in my world. Did you watch The Bear? On FX? No. So he's like, I don't think an executive or co-producer or something, but takes a lot of those themes and implements it into the show. Really cool to kind of see it in action in a drama series. So recommend. I will have to add it to my list. And then I love 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Oh, yeah. And just... God, I haven't read that in forever. We reread it. Several of us at KOA reread it or read it for the first time a year or 2 ago. And it really ties in, when I joined KOA, my mission was to build a team. There were 3 of us, and now we have almost 30. And teams have kind of come in and out of commercial strategy. And so really understanding people, how they need to work together, I think is really important. And, even at our executive level, our executive leadership team at KOA has changed over the years. Yeah. And so, in order to continue the growth that we've had and take on everything that we're taking on, really understanding each other and how we need to work together. We actually just completed the leadership challenge, or we're working through it, I should say. We're not complete yet. So that's something we've been digging into. What's the leadership challenge, if you don't mind me asking? Leadership challenge is really around kind of, first of all, understanding yourself as a leader, understanding how others see you. So your direct reports, your colleagues, how frequently do they see you, exhibiting certain behaviors that are defined by great leaders. And then, working through kind of 5 core components of great leadership, challenging the process, modeling the way, leading with passion and emotional intelligence and all kinds of things. So we're doing that together as a leadership team. Well, it's great because then you have this like common language, right? I mean, that's why it's so good to do that as a team, is because it gives you this framework with which to communicate with each other and understand each other's perspective. Yeah, well, and we've learned, where a lot of us have some strengths that are aligned, and where a lot of us have some weaknesses that are aligned, and so figuring out how to I wouldn't say weaknesses, just opportunities, really. But like, how do we balance that within our team, knowing, okay, we're all, this is not something we do frequently, so how do we hold each other accountable? So it's been really fun. No, that's very cool. How about someone in your career or life, personal life, that really kind of influenced you, that you're like, that's a person that helped to really shape who I am today? So I worked for, years ago at Pakistan, I worked for a leader named George David. And I had exposure to a lot of executive leadership really young in my career there. And he officed out of the first
real store I ever was the store manager of. And I spent a lot of time striving to just wow him in a way, which I think is, all cultivates into my drive. But he taught me a lot about people leadership and inspect what you expect and, how do you set expectations and how do you hold people accountable?
Nice
I
foundational leadership skill set.
And it stuck with me to, even
to this day.
I loved working for him. I learned so much. I've also worked for a lot of bad leaders over the years.
Learn there too, though.
That is just as educational as working for really great leaders. Yeah. So I learned a lot about what I didn't want to be like as a leader. Yeah. And then, personally, my grandfather was a very quiet individual. But he always taught us, work smart, not hard. And as a kid, you're like, okay, But I really think about that regularly.
Stop. Be like, what's the smartest
way? I'm like,
to do
okay, I think it's very easy when you have so much going on to just get lost in the noise. Yeah. And so I think that kind of contributes to my solve for yes mentality. Like, there is a path forward. How do we do it efficiently? How do we do it in, the path of least resistance? And how do we, do things that work well for everyone? Really collaborative.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Yeah. The one last question. This was left by a previous guest, right? And I'm going to ask you to leave one as well. This one's kind of interesting, right? And there's some caveats to it. So, what was a major decision or inflection point in your life that you still wonder what would be different about your life if you had chosen a different path?
Oh boy, this
but specifically not from the perspective of regrets, just kind of curiosity.
Oh my. Well, it's kind of interesting. So from a personal perspective to a certain degree, there was a point in my life where I was in a long-term relationship, and I had to choose to a certain degree. We were living separate parts of the country. I was really kind of building my career, starting the growth of my career. And, his career path was on a very different journey. And I had to choose, do I choose kind of personal and make some changes in my life and in my career, or do I choose my career? I chose my career. And I know for a fact my life would be very different had I made a different decision. But I'm also a really true believer in everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
So I don't do regrets. It's interesting to think what it may have been like.
Right. But it was definitely one of those key points, decision points.
And it was sort of like a result of, some other personal things that had happened. I had just gone through a pretty major kind of like health incident, if you will. Yeah. I was getting back into the work environment, and, I was working retail at the time, which is a pretty intense environment. It is not an industry for the faint of heart. Yeah. And I chose to go back into that industry. And do so very aggressively. Yeah.
Right. All in.
All in, and things could have been very different.
Yeah.
But
you followed your heart.
I did.
At the end of the day. And it's interesting. Life can take so many paths, right? And there's no way to know the decisions you're making are the right ones in the moment, and all you can do is kind of assess the variables and then trust yourself, right? And
that's what makes it fun.
It's what makes it fun. And to be honest with you, I think that it's a differentiating characteristic, especially for leaders, is because you'll never have perfect information. No, yeah. You have to be able to trust yourself at some point. And sometimes that's logical, sometimes it's intuitive, sometimes it's like just your gut, right? Like, and the people that have the courage to follow that, they end up doing some pretty amazing things, just like you're doing. So
Thanks.
Kim, thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm Raphael with the Upstream podcast, and I've had the tremendous pleasure of having SVP of KOA, Commercial Strategy at KOA, Kim Wooten, here with me today, and this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. I've gotten a lot from it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Upstream podcast. I am your host, Raphael Correa, and I am joined today by the enigmatic Senior Vice President of Commercial Strategy at KOA, Kim Wooten. Kim, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
When I started doing this podcast, you were at the top of my list of people that I wanted to have on here, so I really appreciate you making it a priority for you as well.
No pressure.
No, absolutely. So, Kim is the SVP of Commercial Strategy today at KOA. She's also a Blue Water alum, which means that she has, probably one of the most well-versed experiences in this industry. But you didn't start out